All right, guys, page 250. Okay. So they have the first thing is at the end of last week's Parsha, the brothers come down and Yosef puts his goblet in Binyamin's bag without him knowing, and then the brothers find the goblet, and then they chase after the guy from Yosef's man, which is Menashe, chases after them, brings them back to Egypt. They do a search, and they find the goblet in Binyamin's bag. So there is a Midrash actually that the brothers hit Binyamin. They were upset with Binyamin because they said, I don't know why is that funny. I mean, I saw a little old lady trip this morning on the sidewalk. That's really a roll. That's a gas. Yeah. So it says that the brothers hit Binyamin on the shoulders, specifically on the shoulders. I don't know why, but they base that. There's a pasuk later on that because he gets hit and beaten by his brothers on the shoulders for no reason, so the base of Midrash was built in his chelek, which is called Bein Kesefa Violin Hashem. Later on, we find that Hashem rests between his shoulders. And the Binyamin Mida Keneged gets the base of Midrash built because they hit him. Now, why they were hitting him is they said, well, listen, your mother stole stuff from Lavan. So, you got it in the family. What's the word? What's this guy, people who can't control them? Kleptomaniacs, right? What are you? You're just like your mother. So what are you going taking stuff for? And then, that's what the Midrash says. But the brother realized he didn't do it. The brothers realized he didn't do it. Specifically, one of the remarkable things is that the Gemara says there are 4 people who died because of the sin of the original serpent. That means that the only reason they died is because there's a decree on mankind to die, but they never sinned, so they didn't really deserve to die. And one of those 4 was Binyamin ben Yaakov. So Binyamin was not a thief, obviously, and Binyamin was a tzaddik. Oh, by the way, my first name is Binyamin Dovid. Not that there's any connection, but and I'm not a kleptomaniac, but that doesn't mean I've ever taken stuff out of my brother's drawer. I used to take money from his and leave a note. He didn't like that. I was okay with it. I paid him back. So percentages.
Yeah.
So Binyamin is accused. Now, at that point, Yosef says, all right, the guy who I found it by, he obviously stole my goblet, he's going to stay with me as a slave. The rest of you go home. At that point, Yehuda gets involved. Now, this is where the Parsha picks up. Because remember, Yehuda had taken responsibility for Binyamin with Yaakov. Last week's Parsha, he said, send him with me, I'll take him down. Reuven originally had said, send Binyamin with me, and if I don't bring him back, you put my 2 sons to death. And Yaakov said, what kind of, your sons are not my sons. He said, they said, their grandsons are like children. He said, then Yehuda says, well, take him, and if I don't bring him back, I'll have sinned to you in this world and the next. So I was wondering why that's better. I mean, if Yehuda loses, that means Yehuda's risking losing his olam haba, his spiritual world. And Yaakov accepts that. Well, if you mess up, you lose your spiritual. That means he's losing a son to the spiritual world. So what's the difference? The answer, I asked 3 different people. They all gave me the same answer. It's a good question, right? I thought it was a good question. And the answer that 3 different people gave me was that Yaakov's looking for serious responsibility. Reuven kind of says, you kill my 2 sons. Yehuda's already, listen, if not, I will have sinned to you eternally if I do it. Yaakov hears in that a ring of responsibility, number 1. Number 2, I was thinking to myself, you remember, Yehuda had 2 sons who died.
Yeah.
So Yehuda knows you don't just go throwing around, if his sons died just like that. Yaakov hears a ring of responsibility somehow in Yehuda's words. And that's where Yehuda gets involved here. Okay. Now, Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda approaches Yosef. Vayomer bi Adoni. Yedaber no'avdecha dover be'oznei Adoni. Let me speak in your ear. Ve'al yichar apcha be'avdecha. Don't get angry. Ki chamocha kefaro. Because I see you as Paro. Please don't get angry. I honor you like I honor Paro. Rashi brings down a whole bunch of different ideas contained in what Yehuda said over here. Now take a look at Rashi. Vayigash elav, first Rashi. Daber be'oznei adin, dover be'oznei. Ikansu dvarai be'ozecha. Let my words enter your ears. Now it could also mean between me and you, in private, right? Ear to ear, mouth to ear. But we'll see in a second. Ve'al yichar apcha. Mikana tolomed shediber elav kashas. Yehuda spoke harshly here. Ki chamocha kiparo, choshevato b'einai kemelech. I consider you important like a king. Zeu pshuto. Umidrasho, the Midrash says, sof chalilkos olav bitzaras. You're going to end up getting leprosy if you take Binyamin. Kimo sheloka paro deziknoso soro. That, like his ancestor Paro got smitten when he took Sarah. Al-laila achas she'ikva, for one night that he kept her by him. The Midrash says that Yehuda suspected that, what's the connection to Paro? Paro took Sarah because of cohabitation. The Midrash says Yehuda suspected that Paro wanted Binyamin for inappropriate uses. Davar acher, ma Paro goes there ve'eno mekayim, just as Paro decrees and doesn't fulfill it. Mavtiach ve'eno, say promises and doesn't do. Af atoken, you're saying similar. V'chizo sima sayin she'amarta l'someino, you said bring your brother down so I could see him. This is what it means to see him, to do something and create circumstances where you become a slave. Davar acher ki chamocha kefaro, intak niteni, if you get me upset, aharog oscha v'esanach, I'll kill you and your master. So Yehuda says in a very respectful way, bi'adun yidaber na ki chamocha kefaro. This is the proverbial with all due respect. With all due respect, you know, when anybody says all due respect, you know you're about to be insulted like you've never been insulted in your life. With all due respect, sir, you are totally incompetent. With all due respect, right? So Yehuda. Now the question becomes: number one, why is Yehuda getting involved here? Something's bothering Yehuda? So unfortunately, explain, up until now, and you remember last week's Parsha, when they found the money, the brothers figured, listen, we know we did something wrong years ago. We sold our brother, which is impolite. We sold our brother, and we know we're getting it back now. Now, all of a sudden, of all of us, the guy who's being accused and taken as a slave is Binyamin, who had nothing to do with the sale. That means these are trumped up charges. This is all trumped up because Binyamin, especially if you consider that Binyamin never sinned, so the brothers know he never sinned. So he's a family goody, so everybody knows he doesn't deserve this. So if he's taking Binyamin of everybody, obviously, there's some sort of trumped up charges over here. Number one, what does that mean, trumped up? You're making it up. Fake. You're making up charges over here, and you created a situation. Number one. Number two, Yehuda approaches, and he's got to be careful over here. I want to read you a piece of Gemara. The Gemara of Avodah Zarah says like this. There was a man named, the Gemara says, it's a very powerful piece of Gemara, by the way. The Gemara says that Katia bar Shalom has a portion in the world to come. What does it mean? So the Gemara says like this. There was a Caesar. What do you think Caesar means? A Caesar. One of the Caesars, one of the Roman emperors. I think Caesar was a generic term, wasn't it? Like Paro. Paro wasn't his name. His name, it wasn't like Paro's his first name. Paro Muhammad. You know, his friend called him Par. Right? Paro was the title. His name was something like Ramses, right? So it shall be written. So it shall be done. I don't know where they got that. Kloppen al Chay, but okay. So he's Ramses, whatever his name. But Paro is the respect. So Caesar. So the Gemara says like this: there was a certain Caesar that hated the Jews. So he said to his important dignitaries, somebody who's got a sore on his foot, somebody's got a painful sore on his foot. Should you cut it off and be relieved? Or should you leave it there and suffer? Meaning the Jews. So they said to him, you ought to cut it off and you'll be relieved. Katia bar Shalom said, you can't. You can't do it. Number one, you'll never get to all of them because the Jewish people are scattered in the four corners of the universe. And he brings a pasuk. The Gemara brings a pasuk. I don't know that he told the Roman emperor. The Gemara brings a pasuk. And he said that you can't, there's no way that you'll be able to get them, number one, because they're all over the place. So it won't work. Number two, that's one of the cheseds that Hashem did for us in Galus, is that he scattered us. So when the various Hitlers of history have come along, the Jews are never all in one place, because they may be Jews in Europe, but there are also Jews in a few in America, a few in Australia, a few in here, a few there. So we're never in one place altogether. Number one. Number two, even those that you do kill in your area, they'll call you a deficient kingdom, because now you're missing one of your nations. You'll kill out the Jews. Many people say, "Okay, you're missing." It's like, right? You've got a deficiency. So the king said to him, "Listen, you spoke well. However, anybody who bests the king in an argument, in other words, what's the old saying? Don't be right, be smart, right? So you're right, but you made me look bad in front of my men over here. So we throw him into some sort of hot furnace." So when they took him to he was being led out to be executed. There's a Roman noblewoman who said it's a shame for a ship to pass without paying the tax. So he immediately figured out some way to perform circumcision on himself. That's what she was referring to. That means you're dying for the Jewish people. Why don't you die as a Jew? So he managed to, at the last minute, circumcise himself, according to some with his teeth. He said, "Okay, I paid my tax. Now I could go through." When he died, a heavenly voice came out and said, "Katia bar Shalom mezuman l'chai olam haba." Katia bar Shalom has immediate entrance into the world to come, into paradise. They're not pass go. They're not collect 200. Straight in. Don't go to jail. Straight to the world to come. Bacha Rebbe. So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi heard the heavenly voice and he started crying. Amar yesh kone olamo b'sha achas. There are some people who acquire their world in one moment. I mean, this guy was a Roman up until now. He was a Roman official, Roman advisor. In one moment, he acquires his world to come. Yesh kone olamo b'keham shane. There are some people who acquire their world. It takes them a few years, several years. So the first thing here, the first question in the Gemara, by the way, is why was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi crying? When he heard the heavenly voice, why was he crying? He should be happy. Hey, the guy made it in one moment. He made it in. Why was he crying? Why is Rabbi Yehuda not crying? Yesh kone olamo b'sha achas. You know why he's crying? If you could acquire your world in one moment, what happens to all the wasted moments? If that's what you could do in one moment, you could acquire your world in one moment. So what about, look at all the wasted moments that a person could be acquiring their world with. That's why he's crying. That's one of the explanations. That's what I once heard. And he's crying. Could be it's tears of joy. I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, there are wasted moments. Yehuda knows this. According to the Mefarshim, that's why Yehuda says to Yosef, "I want to speak to you privately, because I'm about to slug you up." See, Yehuda also learned Bava Basra, right? He also knows about 8 Echad, right? So Yehuda goes, I'm about to disprove what you're saying. I'm about to paint you a liar. I don't want to do it in public, because even if I'm right now, I'm in trouble. So let's do it in private. He's talking to Yosef. He's talking to Yosef, the emperor who he doesn't know yet is Yosef. He sees him as an Egyptian emperor. Now, I saw there was you've heard of the Chazon Ish, right? The Chazon Ish, his name was Avram Yeshai Karelitz. He had a nephew. His nephew was Reb Nisim Karelitz, who was the head of probably the most authoritative Beis Din in Eretz Yisrael. He was nifter a few years ago. He had a Beis Din in Bnei Brak. And people used to come into the Beis Din, and now you're talking about one of the Gedolei Ador. You're talking about the nephew of the Chazon, he's one of the Gedolei Ador. People used to come into Beis Din. People would insult him, and they would curse him, and they would, what do you call it? Why? So I explained, because 50% of the people who come to Beis Din are going to leave unhappy. Right? 50% are going to be unhappy, and some of them are going to be very, very unhappy. So somebody once came in and got really upset, started hollering and yelling, and one of the other dayanim, one of the other judges, was going to, Nissim Krauss just did like that, don't react. He never reacted. He never responded. He just would wait till the person finished and continue with the court case as if nothing happened. So they've asked him numerous times, how can you do it? How can you do that? He said, have you ever lost 500,000 shekels? It's like to lose, how you feel if you lose 500,000 shekels. if you empathize a little bit, all you do is have to think about where the other person is coming from, then you won't respond. Then you'll understand. There was one case where a guy in the basin got so upset with him, he took a cup of water and he splashed it. This is an eyewitness. This was witnessed. One of the other Dayanim reported this. The guy grabbed the cup of water. He was so upset, he splashed it on him. And Rav Nissan, his reaction, how did he react? He said, "Does anyone have a towel?" Right? So he took a towel and he dried himself off, and then he continued with the judgment, with the case. So the other Dayan pointed out, now look at what happened here. There's a halacha that a judge cannot judge somebody who he's got a personal animosity towards. That means if he was willing to continue the case, he had zero animosity towards the person who threw the water at him. And he was known for this. It was a quality that he had, that he was an unbelievable quality of being able to not respond to insults, curses, terrible, terrible stuff. People threatened him, it didn't move him. The guy threatened physically. It didn't move him. So some of this you have to understand. Yehuda's agitated here. Yehuda's Olam Haba is on the line. So he could be excused if he's talking. He could be excused. Now there is a Midrash over here that says that Yehuda and Yosef went at it. There was some physical confrontation over here. Yehuda gave a roar and everybody screamed. And then Menashe got involved, and Menashe slugged Shimon. That was last week. What happened was last week when Yosef took Shimon to put him in prison, when the brothers were at home. So Yosef takes Shimon. So last week it says, Yosef told Paro to send over 70 of his 70 security guards to put Shimon in prison. So Shimon gave a roar. When these guys came out, Shimon gave a roar, and their faces, the words of the Midrash, their faces turned backwards. I don't know what that means. Like their faces went onto the back of their head. I don't know exactly what it says. Their faces were turned inside out or backwards or whatever it was. So then Yosef said to Menashe, his son, deal with it. Menashe gave Shimon one slug, and Shimon turned to the brothers. He said, "That was a punch. That hit was a hit that comes from our father's house." That was some sort of a major it was a major it was a major so there was a lot of physical strength here. That's what the Midrash says. But at the end of the day, the Musar lesson for us is sometimes in life people accost you, people yell at you, people get upset with you. And the Gemara says, there's a Gemara in Menachos, it says that a person, I've mentioned this Gemara a number of times because it's probably one of the hardest things in life to do. If you look at the earth what the earth is just suspended there in space. And the Gemara says on the pasuk, Tola Eretz al Belima, that God suspends the world in nothingness, that the world exists in the merit of a person who is bolem is from the word belima. He's bolem es atzmo b'shas meriva, a person who does not respond when there's a fight, when there's a quarrel. At that moment, the entire world is suspended in his merit. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, to not respond. So what Rav Nissim Karelis is saying is that if you understand where a person is coming from, a person's agitated, a person's upset. You just lost 500,000 shekels as a sach geld. Right? So you understand where the person is coming from, you won't be as upset. Help the gentleman to give them chumashim. Maybe give them chumashim, make them feel at home. Chumashim, maybe a sufganiya. What do you call it? Make them feel at home. We haven't got any sufganiyas, guys. Okay, that's number three. Number four is that if you take a look at what does the word Yehuda come from? Where did the name Yehuda come from? What? Praise, thank you. Vayigash Elav Yehuda refers to all of us. How do we approach God? Vayigash Elav, he approaches him. Vayigash Elav. Completely out of context, but it's the lesson for us. How do we approach God? Yehuda. Vayigash Elav Yehuda. We approach God with gratitude. Right? That says what Hanukkah is about. The hodos ula halal. Right? In our whole life, the whole reason we're created is to acknowledge the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so Yehuda goes and he says this to Yosef. Then he goes through the entire story. Adoni shalas avadav hayesh lechem avach. You asked if we have a father or if we have a brother. he starts going through the entire. He starts going through the entire. What do you call it? Excuse me. He goes through the entire sequence. Yeah, I said this. You said this. I said it goes on for a few psukim, so much so that the Ramban says, I don't know why he went on so long. The Ramban says, I don't know why Yehuda went on so long. Maybe the Ramban says maybe it was to arouse a little bit of Yosef's mercy. Maybe it was allowed to try to tug at Yosef's heartstrings. And he tells the whole story. Okay, so then in pasuk Chaf Beis, now watch this. You're not going to be ready for this, guys. I'm telling you right now. And 6 lines from the top. Vanomer el Adoni, we said to my master, Lo yuchal anar la'azov es aviv. He won't be able to leave his father. Ve'azav es aviv ames. If Binyamin leaves his father, Binyamin's going to die. We told you we can't bring Binyamin down. He's going to die, or there's a concern he's going to die because what do you call it? He's going to have gaguim. He's going to miss his father so much. He's so attached to the father. We were concerned about Binyamin. That's the plain meaning. But if you remember, does anybody remember what's the bracha that Binyamin gets from Yaakov Avinu later on? Take a look at Parashat Vayigash, where he gives the brothers a bracha. It's page 282. Each one of the brachas, some are compared to various things. On page 282, what does it say? 4 lines from the bottom. Binyamin ze'ev yitraf. He's a wolf. He's a wolf. Now, you ready for this? Yeah, I don't think you're ready. You ready? Okay. I don't think so. Binyamin, there's a source from the Rishonim that Binyamin was suffering from some sort of malady where he would periodically turn into a wolf. I told you we weren't ready. I didn't say werewolf. I said he was suffering from listen, by the goyim. Where did they get this idea from? Where did they get the idea of werewolves from? Where did they get all these ideas? All these ideas funny ideas that they get, like even in the religious realm. Even in the religious realm. What Palm Sunday? Palm Sunday. Palm trees? A palm branch? Why palm branch? Why not fig Sunday? You know, why not pomegranate Sunday? Why palm Sunday? Where do you get the idea that if you convert, you got to go? What do you call it? To be baptized with water? Why baptize water? Why don't you have some booze? Right? That's what you can do anyway. That's what your priests do. Why not do that? Why? Where all they get it comes from us. Do you know that the Hanukkah? Do you know that the original the lights on the Christmas trees? Do you know that the original Christmas had 8 lights on the trees? How do you like that? How do you like that? I wonder where that came from. How do you like that? Right? Yeah. Then once it became marketable, so you put in more. You sell more. It's like the jelly donuts that we have. It used to be just a plain jelly donut. Now you can get them with all sorts of zachet. You get it with all flavors and all sorts of. Who knows what you're going to find inside there. So they probably have what do you call it? Alcohol flavored donuts. Everything you could possibly think of. They have cheese donuts now. They made it, but it started out as just one little jelly donut. It always expands when there's money involved. So it says that he had a malady where he turned into a wolf. And the only doctor who had the cure for it was by Yaakov Avinu. He lived by Yaakov. So Yehuda was saying, if we bring him away from his father, and while we're on the road, he happens to turn into a wolf, and then somebody may hunt him and kill him. So he's going to bring him down here, he's going to die. That's what the Midrash. It's a Rishon. It's a Rishon. I can't. What can I tell you? That's what Rishon. And he's got the Rishon didn't make it up. The Rishon's got a source for it. So he says he could turn into a wolf. I don't even know the werewolf thing. What happens to at midnight he turns into a werewolf or something? Is that what? And then what goes around chomping, biting White Sox fans? Well, that's not so bad then. I didn't know what he. I don't know what he does. Okay.
In the day he would be a wolf, and then in the evening he wouldn't.
It doesn't say. It doesn't say exactly how the malady works. I have a kid who's a terror during the day. Grandson's a terror during the day, but that's different. So the what do you call it? That's what it says. Okay. Okay. So then Yehuda finishes this entire soliloquy, and then take a look at the last on Pasuk Lamed Al. The Haya. He finishes off now. Ve'ata kivoi elav dechavi. When I come, 2 lines from the bottom on page 250. 2 lines from the bottom. Ve'ata kivoi elav dechavi. When I come to my servant, ve'anari nenu itanu v'nafsho kshura b'nafsho. Now Yosef is going to predecease his brothers by 10 years. Yosef dies at 110. He was supposed to live to 120. He lost 10 years of his life because he heard his father being referred to as his servant. Yehuda keeps saying, your servant, our father. Your servant, our father. Your servant, our father. 5 times Yehuda mentions it. And for that, he loses 10 years of his life because it was said he heard it 10 times. But if you look in the Psukim, it only says it 5 times. So how did he hear it 10 times?
Your servant, our father, as double count.
There is one of the commentaries says that.
Because he didn't object.
That's why he's punished for not objecting. There was an interpreter between them. Remember, Yosef had an interpreter. He didn't want them to know that he knows Lashon HaKodesh. And not only that, so he's heard it 10 times. And not only that, one of the commentaries says that's why Yehuda approached him back in the first pasuk. Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer bi'ani davna dover of the ba'oznei Adoni. Let me talk to you in private. Yehuda was saying to him, I know you're using an interpreter, but I see that you understand. Good, Lashon HaKodesh. You understand. I know that you understand. Right? I could talk to you privately. But he was using an interpreter in order to promote the thing. Do you know that the Mir Yeshiva, when the Mir Yeshiva was in Shanghai, so they didn't have, the Mir Yeshiva got to Shanghai, they're in a foreign country, and they didn't have anybody they needed provisions. So one of the Bachrim, they gave him money to go to the local shop to buy some food and provisions to Yeshiva. So he goes to the shop, and he comes back, and the guy, and he's got nothing. He comes back, and he's got no food with him. What happened? He says, he talks Chinese, I talk Yiddish. We couldn't communicate. So one of the other Bachrim give me the money. He takes a $100 bill, which is a pile of money in those days. Takes a $100 bill, goes to the shop. He comes back, arms full of. He said, "What happened?" He said, I put the money on the table, and then somehow he understood me. Good, right? And then at that point, we're able to communicate real well. At that point, there was no problem with communication. We understood the language. That's how the language. I was in New York once. I was with my family, and we landed at Kennedy, and we had to go from international to domestics. So there's a line of cabs over there. So I said to the guy, we walk over, I said, hi, we got to go to domestics. He says, I ain't taking you to domestics. And I know the law is he has to take us, and he wouldn't take us. I went to the next cab, but he wouldn't take us to domestics either, because they don't want to go around, make a short run, and then get back in line again from international to domestics. So I went to 2 or 3 cabs, and nobody would take me. So I saw this cop on the street. So I walked over to him and said, hey, none of these guys are willing to take us. I got to domestics. So he looks at me, big, burly New York cop. He looks at me and goes, well, did you talk the international language? You got to talk the international language. You don't talk the international language, they ain't going to take you. Oh, the international language. Yeah. Then I realized after that this cop was probably fluent in the international language also. I should have spoken internationally with him, then I would have had a cab there. That's how it works. So Yehuda says, hey, now don't give me the. But Yosef, because he's an interpreter, you don't listen to your father referred to as your servant. Then Yehuda finishes v'haya kiroso ke'ein hanar v'mes. When he sees that the lad isn't there, he's going to die. And your servants will then cause our father to go into the with sorrow. The arts go translated into the grave. What Yehuda is saying is, you'll notice the words are V'hoya kiroso, as soon as he sees them. In other words, when we come back, we're not even going to have a chance to tell our father what's going on. Because as soon as we come riding up and Binyamin's not there, he's going to just assume the worst, of a heart attack and die on the spot. Ki avdecha orav esanar me'im avi. I took over. Remember we spoke about an orev? Gentlemen, in the Gemara, what's an orev? An orev is a guarantor. Remember we had an orev is a guarantor. Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. An orev is a guarantor. He says, I am the orev for this to my father for this youth. If I told him if I don't bring him back, I've sinned eternally to you. And we see that this connection between Yehuda and Binyamin is going to be maintained throughout history. Yehuda taking responsibility for Binyamin. What do we find later? The Beis Hamikdash is built partially in the portion of Yehuda and Binyamin. They're neighbors in Eretz Yisrael. And not only that, when the kingdom splits up, so then you get the 10 tribes on one side. Who are the other 2 tribes? Is Yehuda and Binyamin. So there's an eternal bond now that's going to continue from here between the tribes of Yehuda and tribes of Binyamin. Now let me remain in place of him as a servant. Anything he could do, I could do better. Anything you can do, I could do better. Right? He could, whatever he could do. He could work, I could work. He go to war. I'm stronger. I'm bigger. I'm stronger. I'm tougher. Let me take over. Now watch this last pasuk. Pay attention carefully. 5 lines from the top. How can I go up to my father? And the boy is not with me. The lad is with me. So the commentaries say, how can I go up to my father and the years of my youth are not with me? It means when a person goes up after 120, when a person is young, sometimes people feel when they're young, they can goof around and play around, and then when they get older, they'll get more serious. But a person is then going to be accountable for so if a person didn't know until he was a little older, that's something else. But that a person has to take responsibility. But Rav Shiller Zatzal, the Rosh Yeshiva, used to say, how can we be complacent when there are young Jewish people who are not attached to Yiddishkeit? How could we go up to our Father in heaven not having taken responsibility, where the young Jews are not with us? There are the young Jews out there. Now, you have to be careful here. It doesn't mean that we have to go running around into all sorts of inappropriate places trying to be makar of people. There was the disco rabbi in Israel. I don't know if you ever heard of the disco. There's actually a book about him. But the disco rabbi was a holy Hasidic Jew who was never influenced one iota by the people, by the locals. And he went into Migdal HaEmek, which was one of the worst low economic areas in Israel, and he turned over the town. He built an entire empire there. So he's called the Disco Rabbi because he used to go into the first time he went there was looking for where did the youth hang out. He says, where's the yeshiva? They said they're in the disco. So he asked somebody, where is Yeshivat Disco? Right? He never heard of a disco. Didn't know what a disco was. He was a hardcore Mea Sharm guy. And he went over there. We have to be careful how we do this, but we have to realize that when we do have an opportunity, we have to take responsibility. Okay. Now the Torah gets the most dramatic, one of the most dramatic moments, if not the most dramatic moment in the Torah. V'lo yachol Yosef lihisapek l'chol hanitzavim olav. Yosef could not hold back with all the people there. And the Midrash said the Egyptians themselves who were there also, they were all pressuring him. Oh, come on, give the kid a break. He didn't mean to take it, that sort of thing. He was under a lot of pressure. And is also emotionally moved. And he hears that Yehuda cares about Binyamin, which is what he wanted to know all along. Vayikra hotziu kol ish me'alai. He called out, get everybody out of here. V'lo amar ish ito be'izvara Yosef elachiv. No one was there when Yosef was alone with him, revealed himself to his brothers. Yosef was putting himself in a life-threatening situation. He doesn't know what their brothers are playing. He knows that 2 brothers trashed Shem, and he knows that Yehuda's upset, and Yehuda's stronger than everybody, And he says everybody got it. He leaves himself alone with these 10 brothers in Israel when Bill Clinton came here. So Bill Clinton made a visit to Israel. He was staying at the King David Hotel. So the Israelis said to the Americans, we'll provide the security. We're good at this. We know how. And the Americans said, no, we'll take care of it ourselves. So they had him in the King David Hotel. And, the Israelis just saw Clinton. They all want to get his autograph. The mob of people there, of Israelis, are standing around trying to get at Bill Clinton. And the American security guys are holding back. Clinton's in a room. And apparently the Americans had overlooked the fact that there was a side door. And the side door opens. And all of a sudden, a bunch of falafel-eating Israelis stuff into the room, and they're crowded around Clinton. The security guys couldn't get there for about 10 minutes. So Clinton was surrounded by Israelis for about 10 minutes, which is a major what they call in Hebrew, a calamity, a security calamity. So they finally got to him, and the Americans didn't know quite what they were dealing with. Okay, so Yosef's alone. Yosef's alone with these 10 brothers. They could just easily kill him now. He has zero security in the room. He's alone with them. And why is he willing to do it? Because he does not want to embarrass his brothers when he reveals who he is. He doesn't want anybody else in the room. And he's willing to risk, like we found by Tamar, she'll give up her life rather than embarrass Yehuda. Yosef is willing to die rather than embarrass his brothers. He's alone with these guys. Vayiten es kolo bivchi, he starts crying. Vayishmu mitzrayim vayishma beis paro. The Egyptians, which is Paro's household, they hear. There's opinion that they actually heard his voice. He was crying so loudly. It was so emotional. Now watch. Vayomer Yosef Elachav, Ani Yosef. Ha'od avichai, my father's still alive. V'lo yochlu echav la'anos oso ki nifalu mipanav. His brothers couldn't respond because they were petrified. They were in shock. I mean, how do you, whoa, what can you possibly say? Like, Yosef. Simba, he's alive. Simba. Run, Scar. All of a sudden, Yosef, he's alive. Like, whoa, the shock. Now, look at the first thing he says. Ani Yosef, is my father still alive? Well, they've been talking about his father all along. Yeah. So why does Yosef ask? Why is that his first question? The answer is because Yehuda, when Yehuda told it over, he said in Pasuk, if you look at the fourth line from the top, Yehuda says, "Vanomer al Adoni yesh lanu azaken v'yeled zekunim katon." We said we have an elderly father and a young child, a young boy. The achiv Mason, his brother died, referring to Yosef. Yehuda has told Yosef that Yosef is dead. Yosef knows for a fact that he's not dead. As Mark Twain, somebody had spread a report that Mark Twain had died. So Mark Twain sent out a telegram to somebody. The rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. Right? Yosef knows that Yehuda lied about that because he's Yosef. So maybe he's been lying all along about his father. So that's immediately Yosef. Ani Yosef, is my father really alive? Now, there's a Midrash here, a very powerful, but one of the most famous Midrash and one of the famous insights in Chumash. The Midrash says, Oy lanu miyom hadin. You ever hear the word oy? Oy is not just a Yiddish krechts that your Zaidi used to krechts out when he sat down in a chair if somebody was in the room. Oy vey, Somebody once even said oy is not honest, because nobody goes oy when nobody else is around. Nobody goes oy when they're alone. It's only if somebody else is, you go oy. Nobody, when you're alone, nobody goes oy. Right? Maybe you say something else, but nobody goes oy. Oy is actually a word. It says in Mishlei, lemi oy, who groans oy. Lemi avoy, who groans avoy, which is where we get oy vey from. Oy vey is really oy avoy. Oy vey. Lemi oy, lemi avoy. Who groans oy and avoy? So the pasuk goes on and say people who drink too much and they got a hangover. Right? That's what the pasuk says. The people who are drinking a lot, they're, oh, not so loud, please. Somebody turn off the lights. Right? That's what the context is. Okay. So the Midrash says, "Oy lanu miyom hadin." Woe to us from the day of judgment. Oy lanu miyom hatochecha. Woe to us from the day of rebuke. If Yosef's brothers couldn't respond to him, how are we going to respond to the Ribono Shalom on the day of judgment? When Yosef's brothers could not respond to his rebuke, how are we going to respond to the rebuke of HaKadosh Baruch Hu?
We didn't throw him in the ditch.
1 second, but no, not the rebuke about that. We have other issues too. Right? We threw a lot of Yiddishkeit in the ditch. Right? So we might not throw Yosef in a ditch, we throw a lot of other things in a ditch. So as Midrash says, if they couldn't respond to Yosef as a king of flesh and blood, they couldn't respond to his rebuke. How are we going to respond to the rebuke of the Kodesh Baruch Hu? So the Beis Halevi, the famous Beis Halevi, says, 1 second, where did he rebuke them? He didn't rebuke them. He just said, I'm Yosef. Is my father still alive? The Beis Halevi says, you know what the ultimate rebuke is? The ultimate rebuke is when you're caught in a self-contradiction. You're giving me this song and dance about how he won't be able to take the shock of Binyamin if he doesn't see Binyamin, and they'll pull out the violin for Yaakov and Binyamin. I'm Yosef. My father's still alive? You weren't worried about it then when you threw me away, about if Yaakov will handle the shock or not. That you weren't worried about. All of a sudden, now you're worried about it? Ani Yosef. I'm Yosef. My father's still alive? That's the rebuke. The brother could not respond. That's the one that hurts the most, is when you catch somebody in a self-contradiction. Oh, yeah? You know, my father, all of a sudden, was a master at nailing me on that sort of stuff. He would nail me. Yosef says to him, what did Yehuda say all along? Yehuda said all along, oh, my father, if we don't bring Binyamin back, Yaakov won't be able to handle the shock. And oh, you're so concerned about his shock all of a sudden. Oh, you're so concerned about his shock. What about the shock? I'm Yosef. Is he still alive? That you didn't ask yourself 22 years ago. Will he able to handle that shock? 2090, whatever it was. I'm Yosef. That's the rebuke the Midrash is talking about. Because the rebuke from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is simply taking us, when a guy says, why didn't you have tefillin? Tefillin, $800 for a little black box. Because you got this other little black box, that cost you $800, that was okay to spend on, huh? How come you didn't make it to davening the other? Well, 7 o'clock's early to get up. 7 o'clock, I saw you went on a hunting trip at 7 o'clock in the morning that you had no problem with. So the ultimate rebuke is when we're caught in a self-contradiction. That's a self-contradiction. That's the rebuke Yosef nails the brothers with over here. We'll see more tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem. Chazak u'baruch.